We want to catch up with a political analyst on what we've heard from the president. Ongama Mtimka now joins us virtually from Gqeberha. Ongama, thank you for joining us at eNCA, and thank you for this time. I mean, we've heard quite a lot from President Cyril Ramaphosa. I want your key takeaways from some of what we've heard. Ongama, can you please just unmute yourself? We're having difficulty in hearing you. I'm sure if you unmute yourself, we'll have you on the line.
Great. Good evening to you and your viewers. Thank you for having me this evening. I think that it was a largely reassuring speech and very detailed in terms of what specifically is being taken forward. The bold admission that there was state capture and that the Zondo Commission yielded valuable insights in terms of the extent of it, as well as the shout-outs right at the end to Professor Thuli Madonsela, who kickstarted the process, are deliberate, especially in the wake of the speech given by former President Jacob Zuma yesterday. I think what was reassuring for me was to see that there is accounting for what action is taking place around each of the many recommendations, or as many of them as possible. I think those that relate to, changes that needed to be made or followed through by other law enforcement agencies, while the pace of it is not what we would love, and there's a need for greater management of those law enforcement agencies to achieve results. It was good to get some feedback in terms of, how many people have been rounded up, how many, how much funds have been recovered, among other things. And we have indeed seen some things. Where I started hearing him resorting back to doublespeak was towards the latter end in relation to the executive and what must happen there. This being a conference year, among other things, it looks like it was going back to vintage President Cyril Ramaphosa when it comes to what action is going to be taken as far as those implicated who are still in the executive. Otherwise, so that's the one area in which I would greatly falter the speech. But also, we've got to see the details in terms of what's in the document that's being sent to the National Assembly. For me, this was a very important speech to be had at this time, and a summary in terms of how government views the process of the inquiry into state capture. It was a very important asserting of support towards that process.
I was going to ask about that last part, Ongama, given that when he spoke about the implication of your ministers, your MECs, your premiers in the report itself, he didn't say much. In fact, he said that he will attend to those particular individuals, not mentioning how this is going to happen. Now, you mentioned that we're going, of course, into conference season, given that the elective conference is just around the corner in December. Is he playing his cards safely headed to that elective conference? Because there have been ministers even that have been fingered by the report, because we didn't get the gist of really what's going to happen to them now that the report is out.
Two things there. So the first one, the president emphasized the agency of the president in the manner in which government responds to the state capture inquiry. It was very clear at the beginning that it's recommendations from inquiries, and how much the president takes the process forward it depends on the will, as it were. I think that's the message he was driving. So noting that, I suspect that the reason why he was ambiguous on this part or about what action is going to be taken or whether or not, in fact, certain things had been referred to law enforcement agencies that relate to the role of the executive. Part of what I think is going to happen is that this aspect is going to be his Achilles heel. Why? Because how power is constituted in the ANC is a function of the power brokering that happens by these powerful figures, among whom are powerful politicians who sit in the NEC and therefore become members of cabinet. And in fact, this is why I argued the point that perhaps the best days of President Cyril Ramaphosa may have been to provide the support and carry the process up to where it is going to to this conference of the party. I doubt very much that he is the person to follow through on these before the conference or even after the conference. My sense was that if he wanted to be true to this political support that is giving to processes of renewal, he should have chosen or worked to ensure that come the conference, the politics of the ANC are shifted away from this grouping that has got so much allegations facing them, many in the current NEC, and make sure that power is forced out of his grouping and also those that constitute the power base of even the opponents that are currently in the NEC. That's the only way to secure or to guarantee continued political support for this process. He himself facing the Phala Phala scandal makes him a person whose credibility is going to be questioned to such an extent that it begins to derail how much work needs to be done at an executive level in order to make sure that these things are followed through. I'm happy that he's been able to continue to get support from the NEC and the cabinet to get to a level where this message that was shared today could be shared, and the matter being passed on to the National Assembly. I think that we cannot underestimate the value of that in a political climate in which there are a lot of people who are questioning the idea of a constitutional democracy where power is limited and corrective action has to be taken where there has been evidence of faltering.